Miller,
Here.
English,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Eddinger, McEvers,
Here.
Gookin.
Yep. If we could rise for our invocation, we have Pastor Ray Duran with us from Candlelight Church.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members. Please bow your heads with me as we pray for tonight's meeting. Father, we come before you tonight, Lord, with thankful hearts. We are so grateful, so thankful to live in such a beautiful city and a beautiful county. Lord, we thank you for what's ahead for the year 2020. I pray tonight, Lord, that you would give wisdom to the council members in all the decisions, all that they say, all that they do, so we might prosper in this city and in this county and live better lives for your people. So we thank you, Lord, for this night, and we thank you for this meeting. And Lord, we pray all these things in Jesus Christ's precious name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have an amendment to tonight's agenda, and Dan, if you could.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Help us with that.
So we're going to be adding item 5 under consent calendar. So I will make a motion to add item 5 to F consent calendar, approval of a final plat for SS 1913 Georgia addition to Coeur d'Alene on the agenda. A timely request was made to include this item on the agenda, but it was inadvertently omitted when the agenda was prepared, and the final plat must be approved prior to the issuance of building permits.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we have added that item to the consent calendar. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone that would wish to speak to the mayor and council on city business should have 3 minutes to do so. Anyone in the audience have any public comments tonight? Look at the students looking at each other. So does anyone have any comments? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of the consent calendar, including Resolution 20-001.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do you need to read a resolution item, or are you good, Renata?
Nope, I just need to do roll call.
Okay, so roll call, please.
Okay, Gookin,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers.
Yes.
Motion carried. We're on to announcements. Any member of the council have an announcement tonight? Kiki?
I just have one. The Library Board of Trustees has an opening. They meet monthly, and that position is in charge of all of the state mandate statutes that the library has, including their budget and overseeing the librarian position. So if anyone's interested in a trustee position, they can contact Amy Ferguson at the city for an application for that.
All right. Any other member of the council have an announcement
Mr.
tonight?
Mayor.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to acknowledge the students who are here tonight. Thank you for showing up and doing your civic duty, but I know you get credit for this, so. And it should be worth your time. Also wanted to say goodbye to one of our city employees, Michelle Cushing, who was our HUD grant administrator, and I really enjoyed working with Michelle and all the information she provided and the work she did on that, and it's kind of sad to see her go, but she's moving up in the world, and so Renata will be madly searching for a replacement, but it was a high bar. So Michelle, we'll miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other announcements or anything from council? I have a piece of business. I would like to get an appointment of Ben Wolfinger to the Civil Service Commission and Ally Shute to the Arts Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. As everyone is aware of, Ron Edinger is retiring after 50 years of service to the city, and Governor Brad Little had written a letter that I would like to read on Ron's behalf to Ron. And again, this is from Governor Brad Little. Dear Ron, please accept my hearty congratulations and gratitude for your 50 years of service to the city of Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene and the surrounding area is considered one of the most desirable places to live in the entire country, and your leadership has helped secure that reputation. Your accomplishments over the past 50 years will benefit the people of Coeur d'Alene and all Idahoans for generations to come. You've lived a full life, and you provide an incredible model for public service and the importance of contributing to our neighbors. Ron, congratulations on your well-deserved retirement, and thank you again for your remarkable service to the people of Coeur d'Alene. Sincerely, Brad Little, Governor of Idaho. So I think that was a very nice gesture on the governor's part. And then Ron couldn't be here tonight, but he did send a message that he would like me to read into the record. And the message says, to the citizens of Coeur d'Alene, I regret that I can't be here tonight to see the installation of 3 fine people, Dan English, Dan Gukin, and the installation of our newly elected councilperson, Christy Wood. You are in good hands. They will look out for you, Coeur d'Alene. Thank you to our city employees for their tireless efforts to better our city. I've been lucky to have served with many outstanding councils. Thank you for giving me the privilege of being your mayor and councilman for these many years. It's been an honor. God bless all of you, Ron Edinger. I think that I know that I can say for this council and many councils in the past that it has been our honor to serve with Ron, and we are very, very thankful. And as Governor Little had said, he set such a fine example, and we have our young folks here tonight. And Ron Edinger, you will find that he was the best elected public official that Coeur d'Alene has ever seen. So all the best to you, Ron. So now we will move on to oath of office. So it's time for those that are being sworn in. I believe we're going to do it as for all 3 of them. Yep. Together.
Just come on, stand in front of the table, please. We've got you situated so you can be seen in the camera. When you go to sign documents, we have Christy Gukin in English, so I don't sure if you want to stand. Might make it easier at the end for you. All right. Thank you, King. Congratulations on your elections. This is the oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Dan Gukin,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Idaho,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Idaho,
the ordinances of the city of Coeur d'Alene,
the ordinances of the city of Coeur d'Alene,
that I will faithfully discharge
that I will faithfully discharge
all the duties of
all the duties of
the office of council member,
the office of council member,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Okay, Amy.
Thank you. I get you to sign 2 sheets here, and then you get your certificate of election and keep one of the oaths.
So at this time, we will take a brief recess. We need to make a couple of adjustments in the seating arrangements, and we will be back
Yeah, so
in
leave
just
one
a couple
oath for me,
minutes. So we'll
Christy.
be in recess for just a couple. We are back from recess, and Renata, if you could do the new roll call, please.
Right. English,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Wood,
Here.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yes.
Miller.
Here.
So now we have the election of the council president.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councilman McEvers as council president.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
But,
What, do you want it?
oh, thank you.
Oh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Woody, are you opposed, or are you good?
I'm neutral.
Oh, you're new to it. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
And so I do want to go over the committee appointments for this year. It's been talked that we are going to have, on the subcommittees, we're going to have 2 meetings per month, but we're going to split up the attendance of that. I believe that Renata has gone over that with everyone. The first grouping of council will attend the first meeting of the month. This would be Amy Evans as the chairman, Christy Wood, and Dan English. The second meeting of the month will include Woody McEvers as chairman and Dan Gookin and Kiki Miller.
Welcome back, Dan.
So the other committee assignments are as follows. Council Member Wood, Tubbs Hill Foundation Liaison, Parks Foundation Liaison, Sick Leave Bank, Park and Recreation Committee. Council Member Evans is on the Arts Commission, the Ped Bike Committee, City Legislative Committee, CDA 2030. Councilman Gookin is on KMPO. Councilman McEvers, Coeur d'Alene TV, EMS, and the Lake City Senior Center Liaison. Councilman English is on the Parking Commission and Ignite CDA. And Councilmember Miller is on the Library Board and is the new member of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Way to go.
So, and I am on the, as our city's representative to Jobs Plus, Ignite Coeur d'Alene, and then I'm also on the Governor's Workforce Development Council. So those are the appointments. And now, anything else? Any other council announcements or anything on that? Okay, we will move on to other business. Resolution number 20-002, authorization of staff to proceed with applying for a waterfront improvement grant to purchase new boat docks and pilings at the 3rd Street Boat Launch and the acceptance upon award. And then we have Monty McCulley. Welcome, Monty.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy New Year. So I come before you tonight to ask permission to apply for a waterfront improvement grant. This is a grant that is administered by the state, and each county in Idaho gets a limit of about $300,000. Typically, there's big projects going on in Kootenai County. We have probably the biggest boating population in the entire state. And so the county Parks and Waterways usually has big projects going on. This particular year, they didn't. So we saw an opportunity to jump in and get our application in while we could. So the 3rd Street Boat Launch ramps, or not the ramps, but the docks themselves, are in a sorry state of affairs. They're rotting, falling apart. The metal that latches the different pieces together isn't holding into the wood very well. So I got some pictures here for you. So these are the 2 launches, ramps, not ramps, but docks that I'm talking about. The seawall dock was replaced just a few years after these ones were built in the 90s, and they're still in incredible shape because we built them with different kinds of materials, the kind we're proposing to build these ones with. So their current condition, you can see the wood has rotted, the metal doesn't grasp a hold in the wood, and so as a result, things like this happen. And so it looks fine until you step on it, and then the weight pushes it down and pops that up about a foot or so, and then it creates a serious tripping hazard and liability. As you can see, the pilings are getting beat up and pushed over and falling apart. You can see the wood rot. And you can see some of the new timbers that we put in. We've spent quite a bit of money over the past several years trying to keep them going as best we can. And then we had a company come in to do some repairs this last year, and they told us that we're just throwing good money after bad. So that's when we decided to start looking at funding to replace the entire dock. And as you can see, this is made out of the steel and polypropylene floats, composite decking. We don't have any, the pilings we have here, you can't hardly see them. They're along the seawall, but they're steel. We would actually be putting steel pilings, I don't know if you can see, with the new McEwen project around the boardwalk, we have big steel pilings. We'll be using the same thing for our docks. They last 50 years. Wood docks can last 20 to 30 years. And so it'll be a lot like the ones we have here. And so the entire grant amount is for $145,000, $891. The match that we would be paying would be $21,884. We do have that money in a waterfront, our city waterfront improvement fund. I know it's kind of confusing on the staff report because the state also calls it a waterfront improvement fund, WIF, but ours is for the city, theirs is the state. Theirs is paid for with boat registration fees. Ours is paid for with boat launch fees.
Questions for Monty on this? No one has any questions?
I have a few.
Okay.
Monty, I appreciated this report. I wanted to, in case you hadn't heard, I had talked with Troy Tymason today for a long time regarding some concerns I had over this particular, the way this has come forward. And I will tell you I'll support this because of the grant opportunity here, but the actual mention of the docks in any of the long-term improvement plans was never there. The ones that I could find, there was ramps, there was waterfront improvement, but to take a look at these docks had never been in the cap plan moving forward. And that a couple of different things that I had talked with Bill Greenwood about over the years, when this came forward this time, were going to be included, and they weren't. And so I'm kind of disappointed in some of the, hey, there's a grant, let's grab it, but I think that the opportunity's there and the work does need to be done. But I did want to make sure you knew and that council knew that I had talked in detail with Troy, and we'll talk again with Bill Greenwood about the rest of the 9 items I had that were concerns and questions that didn't get answered. But I am going to support this moving forward because I think the opportunity and the necessity of repairing the docks is important. But it is with that caveat that I do have some concerns about how this has all come about.
And I will say that I believe I know what you're talking about, and I don't think that's precluded. Even if we rebuild these docks now, I think we could still add that on later if we so choose.
Okay, good. Well, as long as we have an opportunity to keep talking about being efficient and looking at this, how we're putting these forward and not just doing a quick grant grab. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Monty?
Well, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Just a comment. I look forward to talking to Councilwoman Miller a little more about this. What I know is Park and Rec, this was brought forward to Park and Rec, and they were certainly in favor of the ability that we could repair these docks because they're in such disarray. And from what I understand, the grant just became available when it became available. And so I haven't heard about your concerns, but fortunately we get to meet very soon and go over some of those. But I can just tell you that Park and Rec was very much in favor of this. And I think there's some exciting things in the future that we're still going to do at 3rd Street. But this is an opportunity, and I certainly hope the grant is approved because this is a lot of money that will cover those docks. So.
Any other comments or questions for Monty? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
I would make a motion to approve Resolution 19002, authorizing staff to proceed with applying for a Waterfront Improvement Fund grant to purchase new boat docks and pilings at the 3rd Street boat launch and acceptance upon award.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
And I should clarify, it's resolution number 20-002. Some of us had a hard time catching up with the new year. That was my typo. I apologize. Okay. Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes?
Wood?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Monty.
Thank you.
Now, we have Resolution 20-003, approval of a contract with TO Engineers for the design of future Wilbur Avenue, Ramsey Road traffic signal. Chris Bosley.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council. I thought I'd start things off on the right foot this year by coming in and groveling for money a few times. So my first presentation is for this signal design for Wilbur Avenue at Ramsey Road. So this aerial photo here shows the location of that and this big vacant field here. And next slide shows the future build-out of Coeur d'Alene Place, or the next phases as was previously proposed. And this road here coming in here is Wilbur Avenue. From my understanding, their first portion of their next development is just to do some work near the entrance, but put in that leg of Wilbur. It won't connect all the way to Moselle. When it does connect to Moselle, which goes all the way up to Prairie Avenue, then a lot more traffic will come out onto Ramsey Road through Wilbur. And as you know, ITD is building a signal at Wilbur and 95, and they are building Wilbur through to Government Way, so that could potentially attract a lot more traffic coming through there, necessitating the need for a signal. So when Coeur d'Alene Place begins construction of this phase of their development, they would like to get the infrastructure in the ground so that we don't have to tear it out later. So what I'm asking here today is to approve a contract with TO Engineers to design that signal so that we can put the underground infrastructure in, incorporate it with Coeur d'Alene Place's plans, so that when they build this, we'll be ready to put in signals at a future date. And I don't expect that that would happen for another 3 to 5 years. That's just a guess based on how fast development moves, but once that connection to Moselle is made, that's when the signal will really be warranted, and that's further down the line. Not asking for that money today, I'm just asking to get this design done so that we can get it incorporated with Coeur d'Alene Places. And I would stand for any questions on that.
Questions for Chris? Woody?
So when does a developer pay for that stuff? Is that coming down the line that they will pay for the signal or not?
That has not been agreed upon. When they proposed this phase of the development, I was able to get a traffic study out of them. They hired an engineering company, Whipple Consulting, to perform a traffic analysis on that and a signal warrant, which shows that it would be warranted once this development was complete, or at least Moselle was connected to Wilbur. But no fees have been earmarked specifically for this signal, though Coeur d'Alene Place over the years has put in quite a bit of impact fees since 1996-ish, when we started charging for those impact fees.
So you don't see them being really a part of the cost of the traffic light when it gets there, but they've added to the impact fees from their development?
Correct, yes. And with this next phase, it looks like about 457 homes would be put in with this phase of it, which ends up being just shy of 400,000 in impact fees for traffic specifically. Because it goes into two quad, there's the quad one traffic and then the citywide traffic. The combination of those two is about 375,000.
Thank you.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Chris, I have an article here from the Coeur d'Alene Press from 2018 where there was some contention between the developer and the city regarding this specific signal. And in the article, it says that the developer was going to pay for this, the engineering on the signal. So what changed?
Well, originally, when they had proposed this, one of my conditions of this development was for them to pay for that signal, put it in. When we met with the developer and their attorney, we discussed how much they had paid in impact fees over the years and how much they were going to pay in impact fees into the future, and we settled on them at least. Well, their proposal was that they would perform a traffic study and look at how much traffic they would be contributing to that intersection, because obviously not all the traffic is coming off of Wilbur. Ramsey Road carries a lot of traffic itself. So they agreed to perform a traffic study that would show how much of the traffic is due to that development and how much they paid in impact fees over the years to see whether or not they would be on the hook for that. And this is where we're at now.
I understand. I brought up impact fees before, and I had a copy of the impact fee report. I didn't print the whole thing out because it's like 70 pages, but it's dated 2004. So it's, actually February 2004, so it's like 16 years out of date. And it had been updated in the past, so the original one was in 1993, and then it was updated again in 96, in 2000, and 2004. And these are fees. Normally, the city, since I've been here, updates its fees almost every year. It seems like we're doing fees. I know we just did the wastewater and water fees. And it seems kind of odd to me that we are still lagging for 16 years on impact fees, which could have gone up and would have helped to pay for this. Because for people who don't know, our students who are visiting, who are enthralled by this conversation, impact fees can be used for 4 different things in the city, if I'm correct, because I read the report. So it can go to fire, and it can go to police and parks, and it can go to streets. So these are things that a development would impact. And so in this case, if the developer is going to be paying $400,000 or so in impact fees for these 457 homes, and the signal costs $250,000, that seems kind of disproportionate, a high amount to spend on a signal. And of course, they'll have to pay the impact fees anyway, but the signal wouldn't be coming in if the development wasn't coming in. It also is interesting to me because if I read our code regarding impact fees, the impact fees for a service area have to come from that service area. And this is Quadrant 1. And the traffic study that was last done on Quadrant 1 was done in 1996. And that's what's being decided. That's from the impact fee schedule. I printed out that page as well. And then the one that shows Quadrant 1. And then also, capital improvement items from our last year's budget doesn't even list this. We listed the Kathleen to Atlas, the Atlas industrial loop design thing, which you're bringing to us next. And that's in here, but this signal isn't. So it just seems to me that the developer should pay for it. When Costco came in, they paid for their signal because the city told them to put in a signal. When Fred Meyer came in, they paid for their signal because the city told them to put in a signal. And when the Kroc Center came in, they paid for, with donations, the signal because the city told them to put in a signal. Now we're going to be putting in a signal, and the developer's not paying for it. That's what I understand.
Chris, has it been determined who's paying for the signal or not?
Not at this time. The intent of that traffic study and the look at the impact fees was for that, but no agreement has been made to date yet as to who would pay for that signal. All I'm asking for today is to get this design done so that we can get moving on it.
Yeah. So no decision has been made on who's paying for the signal?
Not to my knowledge.
Would that come to us?
Well, if we're spending the money, yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
And the $19,000 is coming out of Quadrant 1 impact fees?
Correct.
So the $19,000 fee is coming from an impact fee that's been previously paid by someone that developed something in Quadrant 1?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Dan?
Well, I agree also that we really need to take a look at updating the impact fees, and we've had discussions, and I think that's in the pipeline to do that. On a practical note, happen to live in Coeur d'Alene Place, so I drive right by there all the time, and they've got all of the new apartments and things that are just finishing up now. So I can completely picture that, oh yeah, that's going to have a huge impact down the road. And it certainly makes way better economic sense to do the early stuff now. So it sounds like this is a kind of a logical, reasonable increment to do at this point. So,
Any other questions for Chris on this? If no other question, we'd be looking for council action.
well, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 19003, approval of a contract with TO Engineers for design for the future Wilbur Avenue Ramsey Road traffic signal.
I'll second with a small correction. I believe it's going to be 20-003.
Yeah, correct. Thank you, Amy. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
I'm obviously new, in case nobody noticed. But I was curious about Dan's conversation about impact fees. Is that something in the works that we're all going to discuss in the future? Just that topic?
Yes, and Troy, there has been some work done on impact fees. There just hasn't been anything that's been brought forward, but there have been some suggestions. The real tricky thing about impact fees is the other flip side of that is affordable housing. And when you add more fees to housing, that complicates that. But that doesn't say that we shouldn't update it from what Dan said. We haven't updated it since 2004, right? So, but I know that's in the works. And Troy, you might talk about some work that's been done on that.
Yes, we have looked at those impact fees through the Great Recession and understand the updates. We are working on that comprehensive plan so that we can look at what these densities will be. The impact fees are definitely driven by what the zoning is, because then you spread the cost for these improvements. The city engineer is correct in that the Wilbur intersection probably was not anticipated in that report. So I would advise that as we look at the comp plan, we understand a signal up there. We will have a signal being proposed for that location. Another one would be La Crosse. We've looked at La Crosse on Northwest Boulevard. You've been talking about it. We're working on that. That's another signal that is not in the plan as we continue to develop. So your input on the comp plan, what our city will look like as it goes more towards the mature side of things, will help us with the impact fee numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
No.
English,
Yes,
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. Move on to item number 3, authorization of staff to proceed with applying for a local highway safety improvement program grant for pedestrian safety improvements. Chris?
All right, now that we got the easy one out of the way. So, the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council puts out these grants periodically. This one is due January 16th. It is the same grant that we were able to secure for the downtown signal improvements, which we've finished the plans for that, but that is a fiscal year 2022 project, so that's coming up. But this is a very similar grant in that we would have a 7.34% match on that. This is based specifically on a benefit to cost ratio. It is a very simple application in terms of you're not trying to sell anything other than just show that the money that you're putting into it is going to have a great benefit to it. And so what we looked at doing was installing some more of our rectangular rapid flashing beacons that have been so popular around town. And we actually have them at 19 crossing locations throughout Coeur d'Alene now. 7 of those were from a grant that we also got through LTAC, but that was just to secure the materials, and then we had to do all the work installing them. With this grant opportunity, we would be hiring an engineering firm to design plans to to replace the pedestrian ramps, bring them up to ADA compliance, and then contractors would do the work and install the RRFBs at these locations. And so the way that you get the benefit out of it, or one of the requirements of this grant, is that they have to be reducing fatal or serious injury type A crashes. And so this map over here shows pedestrian and bicycle crashes over the last 5 years in Coeur d'Alene. And they're scattered all over the city, quite a few of them. When you weed out the type A and fatal crashes, the black are actually the fatal, which is a pretty somber dot to look at. These are the ones that give us grant opportunities. And in locations where they aren't at a signal, we have an opportunity to put in a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So the rectangular rapid flashing beacons have been very popular. This is one that Sunrise Rotary Club funded for us a couple years ago at Bryan Elementary. And they're very well received throughout the community. So some of the other places that we were looking at were Hanley Avenue and Madeline Drive, which this is about the midpoint between the two roundabouts on Hanley Avenue. We've gotten quite a few calls about that being an unsafe place for pedestrians to cross, kids going to school there, and people speeding in that area and such. So we thought that that might be a good candidate. Another is Bosanko Ave and Howard Street. And now this one, as you're coming up from Kathleen, coming up that hill towards Fred Meyer, you really just lay on the gas to get up that hill and don't realize how fast you're going. And then there's a little community off to the side, and some of those people actually work at Fred Meyer and cross at that location. So you kind of come up on a pedestrian crossing before you realize it. So we figured that would be a good location as well. There are actually 3 locations in Riverstone where we've gotten requests to improve the crossings. And those are at the Centennial Trail Crossing, which is by the Starbucks, BB Boulevard, which goes down to Bellerive, and then near Bardonnais, where there's already that median island in there. And then Best Avenue and 6th. We did install one at 9th and Best, and there's a signal at 4th and Best, and this kind of puts it midway between, but this is one of the near a location of one of the fatalities, so this one is kind of critical to that grant. And then the last one, I had mixed feelings about this one, but as you can see in the picture here, Lake City High School students just crossing mid-block right here, because if you look over here, all these cars over here are not getting gas at the Maverick station or snacks. They're picking up their children, and their children run across in front of traffic to get there. I've had several conversations with the school district about how we can curb this behavior, but I don't see any student or most students abiding to walk all the way down to Ramsey and cross at the signal and then come back. So this just seemed like another location where that would be warranted. And it's also, the thought was to put it on the west side of this intersection where the crossing distance is the lowest, and you're not going to get people turning right across people who are crossing at that location. So this map just shows all of those locations on the map, but so I would stand for any questions you have about this grant.
Questions for Chris? Woody?
Chris, so these things are those flashing lights that you drivers are supposed to stop. It's not like a crosswalk. It's
Right, they're supposed to yield technically.
yield isn't stop.
Yeah, if there's someone in front of them, they have to, yes. But Idaho law is to yield for pedestrians, not stop for pedestrians. Each state is, or some states are different than others in that yield versus stop. And it is just a flashing warning beacon, it's not a positive stop situation like a signal would be. Meaning that once the pedestrian is out of their way, they can proceed through it. If there's no pedestrian in the crosswalk, they can go through with the lights flashing. But if there's a pedestrian showing intent to cross, you are supposed to yield to them and let them cross. And this gets their attention.
Yield, stop, okay, yield, stop. So let me ask you about Fifth Street. It seems like we got an email last week or something about, we put one of these in at Fifth and Sherman.
Oh, yes, yes.
And it was having difficulties. Are these things high maintenance? Do they, we get it for free, but then we pick up the tab forevermore?
Yeah, that one is our most used RRFB in Coeur d'Alene. I mean, you can't drive down Sherman without seeing the lights flashing in the distance because it's just based on the location of it. It's kind of at the end of where people walking Sherman, especially in the summer, they walk from the resort end, they get down to that, they cross, and then they head back on the other side of the road. So it gets used continuously. That one, the battery wore out. We've got that replaced, and that one, it had some other issues with it too, but anything with electronics is prone to some bugs, so we work through those things.
So you're comfortable with the future of these things? Are they getting better, or are they just what they are? They're all battery, there are no cords, no real power, huh?
Correct. The only ones that we put in power were at Ironwood Drive at the hospital. Because we figured that one would be used a lot also, and we had the opportunity to put in power with that one. The rest of them are solar that charge the batteries. I imagine that over the years, battery and solar technology is only going to get better, so hopefully the maintenance needs will go down.
Thank you.
Other questions for Chris?
Mr. Mayor? Yes. Thank you. Chris, I assume that you pulled the accident stats from the state. I'm curious if you've had conversations with the chief of police or any of his staff about the intersections you've identified and any input the police department might have.
I have not.
I think that would be a really great thing.
Yeah.
They're really good with grant language, and they have a lot of knowledge day to day on these intersections.
Yes.
Thank you.
You have any experience with that?
No.
Any other questions for Chris? So we'll be looking for council action then.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to proceed with applying for a local highway safety improvement program grant for pedestrian safety improvements.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Chris, one more. Resolution
right.
number 20004, approval of a contract with JUB Engineering for preliminary budget evaluation for the future Atlas Road Improvement Project.
All right, we're almost there. So my last request tonight is, as you mentioned, for a preliminary budget evaluation for Atlas Road. And so the section we're looking at is from, as shown on this map, from Hanley Avenue all the way down to Celtice. This is one of our last rural road sections in Coeur d'Alene. There are a few more of them, but generally as development occurs, we improve the road to a 3-lane or more urban section, allowing left turn lanes, and it has curb and gutter and most of the time sidewalk. We're able to handle storm drainage and things like that. We have thicker pavement sections that last, but unfortunately this is one of those leftovers that needs a lot of maintenance attention. And you can see in this photo here, all this patching as we go up the hill here, coming from Celtice Way up towards Masters Drive, which is around the corner there. So what we're requesting is $15,000 to hire JUB to do a preliminary budget evaluation where they would lay out what the conceptual road would look like, or street in this case. Look at right-of-way impacts to figure out, quantify how much that's going to cost, and figure out any utility conflicts that are going to occur. And so what also is happening at the same time with this is that KMPO has put out a call for projects, and I've already begun the funding application for that. Points are awarded for having some of the project done. Every step you take gets you more points. Buying right-of-way, having concept done or design done, these things. So what I'm hoping to do here is just move us a little closer, a little higher in point scoring by getting this done. And then even if we don't get this one, we'll put ourselves in a better advantage for future funding opportunities. And so I figured also while I'm up here, I might as well give you an update on the Atlas Road Industrial Loop project. And here's some photos of them grinding off the existing pavement, putting in the curb gutter and ramps for the trail along there, putting down thermoplastic pavement markings, and then just recently we got the signals stood up. This should be up and operational mid-next week. The signal supplier is coming into town to help us get this signal started up, and then it will be coordinated, if you remember, with the signals at the Prairie Trail Crossing and at Kathleen so that we don't have stop-and-go traffic through there. But I just wanted to give you an update on that because we're so close to completion. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
Chris, so how far north, so when you're talking about turning Atlas into an urban road, will you be going all the way to Prairie? Would that be the plan? No,
Well, eventually. With this one, I was just looking at Hanley because that's where most of the rural section is. From Hanley to Prairie, we've got curb and gutter, sometimes on both sides, sometimes on one side, but that section of Atlas Road is also in better shape than it is to the south. And as more development occurs to the north, we can require developers to improve the frontage along that stretch as well. But in this area, it's kind of built out or abutting the Forest Service property or county.
So this analysis is for a future project. Right now, Hutter going north, that's a county road? That's not in the city, right?
Correct. Right.
But everything to the east of Hutter, all the way up to Prairie, is in the city's area of impact.
Correct.
Is there anything that's being done on the county's part to analyze Hutter there as well, that you know of?
I don't know, but...
The Hutter bypass has been on the books forever.
Yes, but that won't replace Hutter Road itself. It's going to parallel Hutter Road. From what I understand, Hutter Road will actually be more of a frontage road. And at Hanley Avenue, that would be the first point that you can get onto the Hutter bypass north of I-90, because from there it veers off to the west and then connects over near the Hutter Rest area.
Okay, so there hasn't been anything, or there isn't anything planned right now for any other studies besides this bypass? Because Dan, you're on KMPO,
Yeah.
so there's nothing.
It's one of those things that keeps going down the road for some reason, but it's been the stuff is there, the plan is there. It's like Chris said, you have to have something, done, some kind of plans right away, a study done in order to get the points, so that you eventually will get the big money grants, which is what everything's all about.
Yeah. Okay. Woody.
Chris, so when you guys do this study, it's very similar to what we've done on Government Way. You do the planning and stuff, and then you wait for the money, and then you're able to shoot it. When I look at that, I drive that occasionally, the Forest Service land. There's a lot of trees there. There's some narrow spots, and then there looks like the right-of-way goes to the west up against people's homes. There seems to be like a roadway there, or what do you guys call that, trail? Asphalt trail along Atlas?
Yes. Yeah.
That's all in the right-of-way, correct?
Correct, yes.
They might think about, if they have a relationship with the Forest Service for swales, it would be nice not to have miles and miles of swales like you guys did on Government Way.
Right.
Where you get a big piece of dirt and you dump all the swale water there. And maybe the Forest Service might be in a good mood if you catch them Is that something those engineers would do, or is that something you do or the mayor does on working things like that?
Talking to the Forest Service?
Right.
I'd be happy to talk to the Forest Service about that, to see if there is an opportunity for that, to partner with them for some stormwater.
Well, it seems like any time we can eliminate swales, it just makes for better flow. They take up so much room and are such high maintenance. And I
Right.
know they keep the water clean, they do a great job, but you guys are getting pretty creative on swales these days, and I want to encourage you on that. I think that's real important.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, will there be anything in this plan about mitigating the intersection of Atlas and Masters regarding the cut-through?
That certainly would be a discussion point. All intersections in it would, but I would certainly entertain that idea.
Very good, thank you.
Anything else for Chris? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
So I would move to approve Resolution 20004, which is approving a contract with JUB Engineering for preliminary budget evaluation for the future Atlas Road Improvement Project.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for adjournment.
Second?
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.